Hello, everybody. I am David Teicher, the Chief Content Officer here at Brand Innovators, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first episode of The Brief with me, David Teicher. I'm often backstage or behind the scenes at our events, but I've been having so many amazing conversations with some of the leaders in our marketing community that I thought, you know what, I really want to put something new together to share with you all, where we talk about the person and the human being, and also B, about the work that they're leading, right? So a little bit of a twofold approach to try to capture the human element and, of course, what they're doing at the brand. So before we get into it, I would like to give a very special thank you to our production partners at Empire Originals, who are helping us bring this series to life. So thank you to Empire Originals for being here with us and making this so smooth and easy to bring together. So I'm so happy to be working with you. Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to bring on our very first guest for the very first episode, the one Beverly Jackson, Vice President of Brand and Product Marketing at Zillow. So I will give, on behalf of everybody watching, a warm round of applause for Beverly. Hello, how are you?
I'm awesome. Hi, David. It's great to see you.
It is great to see you. I've got to say, before we get into it, this is the first episode of this new series, and you are absolutely one of my favorite marketers that we have on our stage, at our events, in our community, and I could not be more happy that you are the one here kicking this off with me. So thank you in advance for being a part of this.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm really thrilled to be the inaugural guest. It feels so special.
Yeah, I mean, every time we have you on stage at one of our events, I always feel so inspired and energized. So, and I know a lot of our community feels the same way. So again, I appreciate it, and we're excited to get into some things, especially because I know, like I said at the beginning, it's not just about the work; it's also about the people and the journey that the people go through and the experience. Because again, some of the brands in our business have such strong personalities themselves that it overshadows the people, right? So I want to put the spotlight back on the people a little bit. So, and that means, you know, being vulnerable, being open, being candid. Not everybody's comfortable doing that. So I appreciate you being here, and we'll get into some things. So with that, I think we talked a little bit about this before the show. I guess it was a little over a year ago in Austin. You were up on our stage, phenomenal panel discussion we had planned, and you were talking about, you were over at Twitter at the time, and said something to the effect of, right, you found your home, you found your people, right? Like, you never wanted to leave, and the world changes very quickly, right? So now, as of a few months ago,
Yep.
you've
Been
taken
about
the role,
100 days.
100 days. All right. So perfect. You have taken the role of Vice President of Brand and Product Marketing at Zillow. And I would love to understand what that journey, what that transition was like for you. I'm very passionate about understanding the talent, the recruitment, the hiring side of our industry, and how we can improve that part of our industry. And as a woman of color who's in a very senior role and has seen both sides of the hiring and searching, I'd love to get your understanding of kind of what you've been through, your experience, and how our industry can evolve a little bit.
Sure. I remember that fireside chat in Austin and that raucous panel discussion. I think I said something like "pay women what they're worth," and I kept hearing that clip for like the next couple of months. Just a note to myself to be nice.
So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud for the people in the back of the room. Pay women what they're fucking worth. Don't hold back on the money. Don't skimp on it. Don't give them less because you think they'll take it. Pay them what they're worth.
I mean, look, it's something that should be obvious, but it's not. So we need people to say it, right? Like, that's at the end of the day. You got to say it until it happens.
That's exactly right. And I still believe it. So I'll say it again. And Absolutely. I'll say it loud and often every time. I remember thinking on the stage that day, like I reflected back and I was really, really wildly excited about my time at Twitter. I think I was probably about the same amount of time into the role as I am now at Zillow, and wildly excited, thoroughly enjoying everything. But Twitter was such a unique experience for me because it was a brand that I had been a part of since since the very beginning. I started incorporating Twitter into the work that I do from a brand marketing perspective when I was still at the Grammys, right? And I think a lot of the success that we had at the Grammys and then later on at Yahoo, I couldn't have done that without Twitter. So Twitter does, and will always have a special and fond place in my heart. And then to be given the opportunity to steward that brand at like a global level, huge opportunity, and such a talented group of folks that and the promise of what could be. So it's so infectious. It's really difficult to not be like, this is my place, this is my people, this is my tribe. But you and I are adults, and this is what happens when adulting meets real life, right? Things happen. And I think, if things hadn't gone the way they did, I would still be at Twitter, still loving every minute of that role. But even in that role, I craved more. I wanted more. I wanted an opportunity to sit in the big seat. I'm a really, really good, a good lieutenant. And so if you have big dreams, you have big aspirations for your brand, I'm sort of the marketer that you want to bring in, because I'm the person you can trust to sort of lead the team, lead the change, to drive results, big campaigns, all of that sort of stuff, right? But I really, really was desirous of sitting in the big chair, and a little bit of sitting in a really cool job, having a lot of spotlight, and then having brands come to me on the side going, we see what you're doing at Twitter, but we want to talk to you about this opportunity here. And so the seduction of that started back in April of 2022, right? And so we had sort of already knew that Twitter was going to be different. And then you've got these phone calls that are coming in and these people sliding into your DMs on LinkedIn, which is, we used to think it happened on Instagram. Sliding into the DMs on LinkedIn is really what's hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that process started. And then I started to see the possibilities of the kinds of opportunities that might be available to me. That process, though, was a grind. Like, it's one thing, I was at the time that you and I were talking at South by, I was building out the team. And even when I talked to you in Cannes last year, I was still building out the team, sort of working on, we had come off of the big campaign in Times Square and the big Super Bowl campaign with Tweets on the Roof. And
Yep.
we were winning a Cannes Lion there in France. And so it was really heady stuff, really exciting, but there was still the desire for something more. And just trying to figure out what that was and what that looked like. And it took so many twists and turns. There were recruiters that were downright rude. Like, there were people who questioned, like, I'm such a live in the forward, live in the front. Like, I'm so authentically me. I say it like I see it. I think on one of my profiles, it says big rock, no chaser, right? Because everybody knows I drink single malt scotch, right? So to have people question whether or not my accomplishments were real was hurtful. And I don't know that they would question you about that. Like, I think you have the ability and the privilege to be able to say it and people believe it, and you have a record that you can stand on. But people were questioning my record in the interview process. It's like, hey, you called me, sir. What do you like?
It's unacceptable, really. And I think it also speaks to a bigger flaw, which is some of the fact that it's become so transactional, right? And it's such a numbers game. And you don't actually know the people. You don't actually know the work, right? So I mean, so first of all, I understand you wanted a role in the big seat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and every CMO needs their lieutenants and needs that cabinet, but the good CMOs, the smart ones, know that really they're grooming people to take their job or to take that job elsewhere at the end of the day. So first of all, I'd like to take a step back for a second to what you were just saying. So what was your response when people asked you to prove it? Like, clearly the smart ones, the people in the know the impact of the work that you've led. They're sliding into your DMs, they're coming to you. So you don't have to go through this process with people that are being disrespectful or showing that, right? So what was your response? Like, how do you react to something like that?
So even some of the people that pulled up on me, like, just pull up, right? They slide into your DMs, and for some of them, they still didn't know the work. Like, it was amazing how ignorant they were of like the person that they're talking to. And so how utterly disrespectful it was. And in some instances, I walked away questioning, wait, what just happened? So my response was, and me, and people who know me, I'm like the eternal optimist. I'm always positive. I meet negativity with positive energy, and
I love that.
I know who I am. I'm comfortable and confident in my resume and my skill set, and I have a body of work to speak to it and a whole host of awards. And so for some of those opportunities, I simply walked away. There were other instances where they wanted to make sure there was a good fit, there was good chemistry. And I get it, like between a CMO and a CEO or a COO, there has to be good fit, there has to be good chemistry.
Absolutely.
I've been super blessed in the sense that like in my job at MGM and some of my other roles at the Grammys and even at Yahoo, getting to work directly with C-suite. And so even though I haven't held that title officially, I sit in that chair. I
Right.
live in that truth, and I run at those goals and objectives. So it wasn't disheartening to me at all. I just sort of moved on to those things.
Okay.
And I get the right to take your phone call. Like just because you slide in doesn't mean that I get to respond. And there were a lot of things, David, that I walked away from. I walked away from people who questioned my capabilities. I walked away from people who weren't clear about what they wanted. I'll tell you a story. So I had
Okay.
one company, super cool, sexy, hot tech company, being repped by one of the largest search firms in the world. They called me up, and the way this works, right? I'm not sure if people really know this, right? But at fairly senior level, what happens is they have someone who's doing the dialing for them. So there's a person who calls and who vets you before you even get to talk to the actual recruiter who's doing the placement. And so there's a team of these folks on this. And so
That's another level of problem right there. Yeah.
So you get the call from the coordinator, or you get the email from the coordinator. And so they vet you out, you fill them out, you get a sense of what this role was. And so I did that with this person. And it really took, between schedules, it took probably 6 weeks. So I had to do a little bit of research on the company. They had to do a little bit of research on me. We get to the recruiter, and it clearly says global CMO. In the remit, it says that in all the information that they send over, it's the title of the interview on all the messages and the meetings that they set up with me. It's right there in the title. We get to the process. I wow the recruiter. They feel really good about me, and they feel comfortable passing me on as one of their top 3 candidates. And we start the interview process with the company stakeholders. You meet the chief people officer, you meet the people that will be reporting to you, you meet some of the people in the who would be your colleagues in the other part of the org. And I suddenly started noticing that the job went from being global CMO to head of marketing. And I thought to myself, is it just me, or did that just happen? And so when I asked about it, they were like, well, we really think that a CMO is not quite the right title. Well, it was the right title when you asked me to call you and we started this process 3 months ago. It certainly must still be the right title. And it's like, well, the job is changing a little bit. And that was my exit stage left.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. And either, they clearly don't have their act together, right? But it also speaks to what you were just saying before the story, where you passed. I'll have to go back and look at the recording, but you didn't say you were passing on opportunities. You passed on the people, right? Like when people reached out to you, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And if that's what the response is going to be mid-interview process to start changing things up for clearly no reason, right? That's or for bad reasons. I mean, those are not people that you want to work with. So that's a shame, and I'm sorry to hear that was an experience that you went through. And I think through this show and hopefully we can make some progress, right? Like that's kind of what I want to get at a little bit, is how we can move past or address some of those issues, right? But that's ridiculous.
But if you've been following me on LinkedIn for the last couple months through this journey, I've been sort of chronicling the journey on LinkedIn, and I've sort of been talking about it and talking about recruiters who were simply amazing, incredible people, where there's one recruiter, I opted out of their job. I was like, this isn't, I like, the more and more I got into it, and it was a great CMO role and there was a lot of money at stake, but I opted out because it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Right.
It wasn't what I really wanted. And then, after I had done about 10 of these things, David, I started to do some self-reflection, and I started to say to myself, what is it that I really want to do? Right. So like in the whole process, there are a bunch of people in my old team at Twitter that just got like blown away on one day. And so there were 170 people suddenly unemployed that used to report to me. And I'm trying to help them find roles. I'm trying to get them teed up for opportunities. We're trying to share information about whether people were ready to move on or whether they're ready to be a freelancer. So I'm doing that, but I'm also actively recruiting and being recruited and interviewing for board positions.
It's a lot.
In the middle of all of that.
It's a lot.
It was an awful lot. So just trying to keep it all straight.
Oh, and to your point, right? You go through a certain amount of these processes, and you learn more about what you want. It's like dating, right? Like when you're dating, and over time, you're like, okay, now I know more about what I want and what I don't want. So there's a discovery process there as well, and you kind of have to go through the grind a little bit so you can come out of it knowing what you then know, right? And being that much more confident in the decision. So that's, I know we have a limited amount of time, so that's kind of what I want to get to next. You ultimately made the decision. You joined Zillow. It's not, it's not the big seat. It's not the CMO role. So it must have been super compelling, to kind of have you rethink, what you were aiming for. So tell me a little bit about the role and why this is what you opted for.
Sure. The people from Zillow. So I should say this. I was well on my way to accepting another offer from another company. I was deeply vested in another process, in another situation. So there were two things on the table, something I turned down and something that I was like, this feels right. And this feels really good. The opportunity, the scope, the role, the money, the resources, all of that felt great. Right. And then the folks from Zillow called. There are recruiters who are just special people who are really, really good at what they do. And this recruiter called me. It was actually an email. She asked me if she could call me. I gave her my cell phone number. She called me. We had a fairly straightforward conversation. And I said to her the same thing I said to you. Well, this feels like the exact same job I've had a multitude of times. I'm not sure that this is a good fit for me. And she said to me, I know that you don't know me, but will you do me a favor? And I was like, let's hear it. I live in Las Vegas, so I'm like, I don't just start doing favors for people. That's how you wind up in trouble.
Road. Yeah.
So she said, would you just talk to the hiring manager? And I was locked in on the first conversation with the hiring manager. I was locked in on the next conversation from the president. She's an amazing, incredibly talented woman, president of a tech company. And then as I met the folks, we never talked about money. We never talked about scope. All we talked about was the opportunity. And I was hooked. And then I had a chance to meet Rich Barton, and he was like the closer. So Rich came in and he like closed the deal for me. But just talking to, as a branding person, as a marketing and brands person, right, and a product person, Rich was sort of all the things. He's the person who sort of like, he's been on the board at Netflix for like forever, right? He worked at Microsoft, like he started Expedia. So it felt very familiar to my days at MGM Resorts. He felt like the team felt a little bit of two things, right? They were tech and very lean forward, cutting edge, but they were also sort of very stable and very strategic people. They move with purpose and intent. And then the purpose-based part of this sort of kicked in, which was, who doesn't want to help people solve the housing issue? So housing represents so much for so many people. For an African-American person like me, who's first generation college educated, it means safety, access to education, access to quality education. It means the opportunity to create generational wealth. So much of what we talked about in 2020 and some of the sort of the turmoil that was going on in the country was about opportunity. And a lot of instances, housing is at the center of that. And so you start to talk.
Only getting harder.
It doesn't get any more central than that, right? And so you start to talk about like being able to democratize access to housing. April is Fair Housing Month, right? I didn't know that before I started working at Zillow. And talking to the people at Zillow and exploring the opportunity, it didn't really matter what the role was. It was, I'm going to get to, Zillow is a beloved brand. Like, it is the brand that people lean into when they're dreaming about what's possible. Even in their darkest days, what's possible, right? And so there's something really gut-wrenching, and it sort of grabs you by the heart on that one. The other one is it's the cross-section of consumer tech, fintech, and then real estate tech. And so there's so much going on. And the company is transforming and growing, and we're going from just offering people the opportunity to dream about a home to helping them provide financing for a home. And that crossroads, that opportunity, I couldn't walk away from it. And I was kind of like, if they'd offered me the job as director of marketing, I probably would have taken it in that capacity. It turns out that I have a big job, but it was the perfect opportunity for me for so many reasons.
I mean, that's amazing. And again, it sounds, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is it's some of the intangibles, right? Because we focus so much on both sides of, what are those boxes we're checking? What is the comp? What are the benefits? Is there a pool table in the office, right? Like with free snacks, but we don't focus, but you spoke to the hiring manager and got really excited, right? Like it's just because of the conversation, talk about the opportunity, right? To do good in the world and have a positive, meaningful impact on people's lives. It's tough to always figure out how to word that in a job description, right? Yeah. But it's the culture. It's knowing that you're working with people who, like you said, they're strategic. They move with intent.
And I have to say, the other thing is that it's really difficult to be in the housing market right now. Like, the macroeconomics are not in favor of being in real estate right now. I mean, it will get better. It will change. It always does. It's secular. But this job has engaged. So I'm a good marketer. Some might say I'm a great marketer. I'm a really thoughtful products marketer, brands marketer. I do amazing, incredible big campaigns and activations. I've done them from big stages to big screens, right? I've changed and evolved brands. I've created compelling, long-lasting content. But this job challenged every ability that I have, right? I used to always think of myself, you've heard me say this, and people have heard me say, I'm a data-led marketer. I'm a data-led marketer. I'm a data-led marketer. I say that a lot, right? What I realized when I came to Zillow is I'm a data-inspired marketer. Data inspires me. I've not ever been in an environment where I've led with so much data, intent, and purpose in the work that we do, right? And so, it's up-level my skills, right? This isn't a broken team. Like, sometimes I go into orgs and I am rebuilding, because remember, I'm a good lieutenant, right? This isn't a broken org. Where the rest of the tech companies kind of grapple with what they're going to be and how they're going to be. Zillow has already been through that process, right? And so the people are stronger for it. And so they're super focused on the work, focused on the brand, and the team. Like, I've never had, and no disrespect to any of the people I've ever worked with before. I love you all. I do. I mean it. But this team is something special. Like, I've got guys and gals who work with me, and they never hesitated about welcoming me. And so the up-leveling of my skills, the quality of talent, the purpose of the work, the focus on the transformation, it's data dense, it's ruthlessly focused on customer-centric operations, it's focused on operational excellence and operational efficiencies. All of those things spoke to me beyond the job description. And to be honest with you, it was when it was right from the job search process, when it was right, and it really
Yeah.
didn't matter what they called me.
That's kind of crazy, right? Where you can be so set on a specific title or different boxes to check, and then this thing falls in your lap and you're willing to throw that all out the window because you're so excited about it. And that, I mean, testament to them, like props, right? Like and it's hard to convey, right? It's something that a lot of people can say, yeah, we've got a great culture, or yeah, we're very strategic, we've got a great vibe, everybody works so well together, right? But then, it's not always easy to deliver on that, right? So kudos to them. The huge coup, I think, right? that recruiter that got you to take that first call. I mean, I hope she got a promotion or some big bonus, right? That's amazing. But the one thing that you didn't hit on, and I think you kind of covered like a lot of the reasons, and I don't know if this played a factor, but Zillow, like you said, it's consumer, but it's B2. There's the fintech, there's the real estate tech, but there's kind of a really fun pop culture angle to it. And as a marketer, I'm between the SNL skits and there's Zillow accounts on Twitter that like to Zillow Gone Wild, right? That highlight the most fun, right? How does that play in for you? Like, is that just kind of a fun bonus, or are you like excited to get involved with some of the more playful side of things?
Oh, I love that, right? I love like the things that we do in our homes. Like, I bought a house solely for the ability to paint a wall dark blue because blue is my favorite color. And so I've got like 6 blue walls, right? And so what people do with their homes is always fascinating to me. But if you've also heard me talk about this, right? You've heard me talk about like when something hits that cultural zeitgeist. So like the New York Times talking about, Zillow being one of the 17 great things to come out of the pandemic. And then also the Saturday Night Live skit. That Saturday Night Live skit is about 2 years old right now, but it still resonates, right? It still connects with people because it is that core audience of millennials buying their first home. They just think about the world in a different way, and they're focused on these are the kids that were born, the latchkey kids. So for them, home means a lot of different things. And so
Absolutely. And you have a new cohort, right? Like every year, there's new people who are embarking on that journey, right? So whether it's the SNL skit or whatever it is, right? There's a whole new world of discovery for them that they're entering that. And I mean, it's home ownership, it is. It's like a dream, right? So there's the aspirational aspect. It's super fun.
That's like one of the things that this is the cultural connectance of this, right? It's like everybody, when I told them I was coming to Zillow, everybody's like, oh my God, I love Zillow. I love it. It's my favorite, right? It's kind of like it's like OnlyFans for people that don't do OnlyFans, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean it's scrolling, right? Like there's a tease there, right? Like, oh, that property looks great, right? Maybe I want to move across the country, right? There's an aspirational like appeal in that respect. Absolutely.
There's also that thing where like one of my friends, and she's someone who's often on the Brand Innovator stage. I won't call her by name, but when she hears this, she'll know who I'm talking about. But she said to me, she's like, oh my God, love Zillow. This is amazing. Every time one of my kids gets an invite from a play date, I immediately go look up the parent's house on Zillow.
Yeah, I mean, it's somebody. I don't know that I've done that yet. Maybe I'm going to start. I don't know that I've done that yet, but I might have to. But somebody recently, I was out with some friends, and they're like, "Hey, have you ever checked out your old house? Like from like I moved, when I was a kid a couple times, and it's like, no, but now I'm so curious. Like it's gone through 3 or 4 owners, 5 owners, right? Like what did it do? What does my old bedroom look like from when I was 6 years old, right? And you can see it, which is crazy, right? Like so, there's like a reflective aspect. I mean, people have so much fun with it. It must be like that's what I'm saying. There's like a treasure trove of content, of ideas, of data that you have at your fingertips. So I know
it's so much from like where the closest dog parks to who has the best coffee or how close am I to a Costco. It's like how efficient will my Costco run be?
Oh, I mean, we moved within New Jersey about 4 years ago, and we looked all over the place. And a major factor that we considered was the restaurants nearby that would deliver. You know what I mean, right? Like And there was a town where we loved some houses, we loved the neighborhood, but like there were not a lot of options. And I'm like, you know what? If there are going to be nights, two little kids, homework, I'm just going to need to order food. And if I only have two options, this house, it's just not going to work, right?
So think about that, right? As a marketer, and for myself being a brand marketer, right? The excitement of that, like there's such a rich canvas of opportunity for how to connect this brand. And because I have product marketing as well, I can tell you that Zillow's product is evolving. Like there's so many new products in the pipeline. The company is changing and evolving. Like people know that they can search Zillow for a home, like they can look at homes and get excited. They know that they can get an agent to help them secure that home. And now we're adding to the context and to the mix that you can also get a home loan, right? And so now you have like this end-to-end experience that you can
Yep.
have. And so from a product perspective, there's so much there. It's very dense. We get a lot of data signals because of the way people search and because of the way people share information within the ecosystem that is Zillow. That is promising and that's exciting. But then we've got B2B and B2C. And so it's this amazing flywheel of products and culture and purpose,
Yep.
along with like a lot of fun. And it's the feel good place. Like no, even with our rental properties, right? In our rental business, because we do rentals as well. Everybody wants a cool place to live.
Absolutely.
Everybody
I
wants
mean,
to solve for that.
you're selling me right now, right? I'm like, maybe I should go check out the options at Zillow. I don't know. That sounds pretty
Well,
fun. No,
you can always go look up your Zestimate and see how much your house is
oh,
worth.
trust me, I have not done that. So I mean, we had folks that came to us during COVID, and hey, we the market's at peak. We could sell your house for you'd make so much money. I'm like, but where would I live? Where would I move? So that's another question. But
Right.
all said and done, this got me really, really excited to see what you cook up. So I know you can't talk too much about what's in store, but you will be joining us at Cannes in a couple months to talk a little bit about that with Ravi and your team from
Yep.
72 and Sunny. So are you able to give us any sort of preview or any idea, any hints?
Well, I'm gonna
If you
go.
can't, that's okay.
I'm headed to see the team at 72 and Sunny next week and to preview some things. But I will say this. I will say this is not the Zillow that you've known and loved. This is Zillow that you'll love even more. There's so many exciting things that are coming down the pipeline, and there's so many ways that the business and the product is going to continue to touch and inspire an entire new generation. And I'm so here for it. And so to me, this journey was exactly what it was supposed to be, and it got me exactly where we're supposed to be. And that whole idea of like being optimistic and leaning into positivity, and no matter what, like that opportunity wasn't for me. This was the right opportunity for me. But you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to a prince.
I mean, wise words. I'm glad you found your prince, and I hope that again that the folks in our community who are going through similar journeys can take something good out of it. And I'm really excited. I hope your meeting with 72 goes well. I'm excited to see it all come to life and hopefully hear more about it in Cannes. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Before I go, I want to tell you two things. I want the audience to remember two things. Like if you found yourself displaced by some changes in your industry, here are three pieces of advice that I would say to you. Don't give up. And that means take all the calls, like talk to everyone and be prepared to walk away when it's not the right thing for you. The second piece of advice that I would say to you is that the old job or the old career may not look like your future or your new job or your new career. Be open to what the universe has to offer you. And the third piece is learn to calculate your value in ways that matter in your life. And sometimes that's not in a stock option, and sometimes it's not in a sign on bonus, and sometimes that's not in a base pay. The value of being able to spend time with your family and your friends and to do things that you love and make an impact on the world are sometimes equally valuable. And you just need to know how to weigh those things. So don't give up, okay?
I love that. And on behalf of everybody in our community, I really appreciate, and they really appreciate your thoughts and wisdom, and just thank you so much for joining and sharing and, opening up. We all really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much, David.
Of course. We'll see you in Cannes.
See you in Cannes.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. This was wonderful. Thank you again to our friends at Empire Originals for powering today's production and being our partners for the launch of this new show. I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back soon for more. So keep an eye out. We'll see you next week, and hopefully at an event soon. Thank you so much.